Simplifying square roots. This is something that you will do in geometry, algebra 2, and further up into math the higher you go. So it's very important that you get a little bit of a grasp on it now. To simplify the square root of 72, you will first need to write it as a square root of a prime factorization of 72. The reason for this is because if you put 72 into the calculator and you try to take the square root of it, you get this really ugly decimal. So sometimes it's better to leave things in the radical form than to try and use the decimal form. To find the prime factorization of 72, write 72 as a product of prime numbers, then simplify the square roots of perfect squares. Okay, so the prime factorization of 72 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. When you write that all out as a product of the square roots, square root of 2 times square root of 2 times square root of 2 times square root of 3 times square root of 3, okay, you pair these up, right? So the square root of 2 and the square root of 2 comes square root of 2 squared, or just 2. You pair these ones up, square root of 3 and square root of 3, which is square root of 3 squared, or just 3. And we have the one oddball square root of 2 left over. You multiply your 2 and your 3 together and it becomes 6, and the square root of 2 follows. So we have 6 square roots of 2. That's how you simplify the square root of 72. Another way you can think about this, if you are familiar with the perfect squares, which are numbers like 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, and 100. These are some of the most common perfect squares because you can take the square root of these numbers and they have a perfect square, right? The square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 9 is 3, the square root of 16 is 4, the square root of 25 is 5, the square root of 36 is 6, the square root of 49 is 7, the square root of 64 is 8, the square root of 81 is 9, and the square root of 100 is 10. So another way that you can think about how to simplify these square roots, when you're looking at something like the square root of 72, you want to think, what two numbers multiply to give me 72? And you want to use one of these numbers, these big numbers, one of the big numbers on this list that's a perfect square, right? So 72 is the same as 36 times 2. And the 36 is a perfect square. So when you take the square root of 36, it becomes 6, and you just leave the square root of 2 on there. So that's another way to do it. That's the way I prefer to do it. I find it to be a little faster and easier for me than going all the way to the prime factorization. But it's ultimately up to you, whatever you feel most comfortable with, how you would like to do it. And then there is, excuse me, my nose itches. There's a study tip here. Let's see what it says. If you're trying to determine the prime factorization of a number and the number is even, then you know that the prime factorization contains at least 1, 2. Divide the number by 2 and repeat until you have an odd number, and then see if the odd number can be factored any further as a product of primes. It's a good hint.